Good morning. Welcome to the Profit Lab podcast. Woohoo! Always energetic. That's how I go. Keep up with me, guys. All right. Awesome. All righty. Let's start our day. Welcome to the Profit Lab podcast. I am your host, Marie Torossian, certified 10X coach, CFO, an auditor, a CPA, and a chartered global management accountant. I serve the entrepreneurial community through my CPA firm, Marie Torossian CPA, and the management consulting company that I have, the Profit Lab. The Profit Lab podcast serves to expand our mission to empower entrepreneurs by bringing their stories to the masses. We are thrilled to tell your story to inspire, empower, and uplift other entrepreneurs. To check out, our website where we have a lot of the audio version of the podcast, and that's on the profitlab.biz/podcast. We launched this show and podcast on August 2nd, where I actually spoke about my entrepreneurial journey so far. And maybe once in a while, I'll jump in and talk a little bit more of what I've learned since the last time. But basically what we do is we share our valuable takeaways from our journey so that you are empowered to learn from them. So every week I plan to feature an entrepreneur from different walks of life. So if you want to be a guest on my show, please go ahead and submit your request to support@theprofitlab.biz. Today is November 8th, and it is our 13th episode, and we are live on my Facebook page at the Profit Lab Biz, on my LinkedIn page, Marie Torossian CPA CGMA, and also my YouTube channel, Marie Torossian CPA. So make sure you subscribe, like, follow, share, you know the drill, on all those platforms. All right. Let's get started. My guest today is Wendy Parsley, founder of Quim. She's a highly accomplished senior level growth marketing professional with nearly 20 years of experience developing, planning, and executing one of a kind creative marketing programs with her hyper focus on community engagement. Community engagement. That's key, right? That's the differentiator for her. She has worked with some of the most innovative companies in the world, honoring her skills in the field of attendee engagement for brands like Google Cloud, Pixar, Allraise, Eddie Road, Simpler, Gainsight, Headspace, and so many more. And with that, Wendy, welcome to the Profit Lab podcast and show.
Hi, Marie. Good to see you. I'm so happy to be with you today.
Same here. I'm so excited to tell your story. And I know we've connected before a few times and talked a little bit, but when you're on the show, it's kind of different, right? So I want to bring your story to the masses, as I promised.
I love it. The energy is amazing. And it is different than our previous conversations. I love it.
Awesome. So Wendy, I so appreciate your time and to becoming my guest and being on the show and bringing your story to other entrepreneurs for them to learn. But so we want to learn about you. And my question is always tell us about yourself, Wendy, the person, not necessarily only the business owner right now, but everything about Wendy that we need to know.
Everything about Wendy that you need to know.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I think probably one word that is used to describe me quite a bit is I'm an extrovert. I think that's something that kind of goes hand in hand with the work that I do.
Yes.
I think it's, being in events and being in marketing, we're just naturally extroverts.
Yeah.
I'm a very loyal person. I have a very small family. We're very close knit. And just an amazing group of friends and family around me. So those things are really important. So me as a person, other than early on in life, we all kind of took personality tests, right? So one of the first ones I ever took, I came up as an ENFJ, which so if you look at the ENFJs, they're sort of natural, extroverted, intuitive, feeling, judging. These are words that kind of go along with the ENFJs. They're also considered to be kind of thoughtful, somewhat idealistic, striving to make a positive impact on the world. Another behavior test that I took showed me to be a collaborator. And as a collaborator, there in that behavioral assessment was, collaborators are warm, they're informal, outgoing, congenial, comfortable getting along with a lot of different people. And I
Yes.
definitely can see myself in both of those. Yeah, so
Absolutely.
that's probably me in a nutshell.
That's awesome. It's interesting that you brought this point. So far, actually, none of my guests have brought that up. So I love it. It's something new, you see?
Yeah.
And that's why I love doing this, because there's so much I can connect with my
Mhm.
guests, and each one that brings their unique view and different ways they answer this question. So it's like, it's really so cool. Um, and it's so funny. While you were telling me ENFJ, I'm like, those letters, were they in that same order for me? Like, because I've done a few personality tests myself,
Mhm.
and that was one of them. And I was like, I'm literally looking on my other screen, so I'm not like, looking at the other screen. I'm like, wait a minute, did I actually put that in my signature? Because I think on one of them I actually have it, and I don't know if that was the one or it was a, yeah, because there's like different tests, but
There
some
is,
of
yeah.
them, yeah. So one of them that I took, I'm like NKBA. That's the one I have there. I
Oh, I
have
don't
the
know
DISC
that one.
assessment. Yeah,
Okay.
I've done the DISC assessment, and I'm IS, so I'm like very, also extroverted. I'm all about relationships and teamwork and collaboration and all that.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
I can see how we're like, both of us very similar in many sense. I've
Indeed.
also done the I think it's the Briggs Myers,
Yep.
16 personalities.
Yep.
I'm the protagonist.
Yep.
So it's
Exactly.
all
That's
like,
your ENFJ. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's like, I'm like, whoa, yeah. And, but yeah, sometimes I forget which ones I took because I've done a few.
I like
But
a good personality test. I'll be honest. I just, yeah, I think that's the inquisitive nature too, is just like trying to learn about
yes,
yourself and how you fit here in the world. Where do I belong? Am I reflecting my true self
yes,
outwardly?
yes.
And do I know my true self? Huh. Oh, wow. We got existential here on a Tuesday morning.
Woo! I can tell you're so, we are probably similar. That's exactly how I think too. And it's our nature, I think,
Yeah.
that does that. Not everyone is similar to that. They don't see view things from that perspective.
Mhm.
But we are specifically wondering how is our impact in the world. Like, we're always seeing this big picture and how we fit
Right.
in there.
Right.
Yeah, and that's also why we also want to have those right people always around us. We want to have the
Yeah.
family you mentioned.
Yep.
Same here, very close knit family. And loyalty is something you mentioned. That's one of
Mhm.
it's in my core values on both businesses.
That's
It's one
amazing.
of it. I'm very loyal, and I'm always looking for, relationships with clients. And
Yeah.
so I love that. I'm so excited you brought this up. You got me all up and energetic about it. And you see, like, this never came out in our normal conversation, did it?
It didn't. No, it didn't. No, it's true. It just, yeah. So there you go.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. So, okay. So tell us a little bit about, what motivated you to start your entrepreneurial journey? Because everybody has that one thing that pushed them to
Mhm.
take that next step. So what was it for you?
Well, yeah, everybody does have that one thing, right? I know that looking back, and you and I kind of talked about this a little bit in our prep call, but I've been thinking about it a lot. Like, what did lead me here?
Yes.
And I think looking back early in my career, I knew I had a fire in my belly for something else. Not really sure what it was, but I knew that I was aggressive in my goals. Like, I knew I needed more than where I was at that particular point. And this is going back to my 20s, and early 30s. Like, I knew I wanted something bigger for myself. And but to say that I stumbled into this is probably an incredible understatement, because I really do feel like I sort of did stumble into it. It was not very well planned. Certainly not as well planned as other entrepreneurs and other business owners, I think. But I found myself in New York City working for a company that was getting acquired.
Mm.
And I had a fantastic boss, the CEO of the company, who was mentoring me and knew that there was a fire in my belly. He knew that I wanted to do something different. And at that time, I'd really sort of established the goal of I wanted to have an agency, a marketing event agency. I knew that was the direction that I wanted to go. And as luck, the stars aligned, the universe, whatever, it just so happened that as part of this acquisition, I was not going to have a home. My department was going through cuts, and that I was not going to have a home with the new company.
Wow.
But there was an opportunity for me to basically take a part of the business that wasn't getting acquired and run it. And they
Wow.
wanted to spin it off and run a magazine and run an association and an event, a big international trade show that happened every 2 years. So it was a huge piece of business, especially since I didn't have a company at that time. And so he basically said, look, this is your chance if you want to do it. Here's what you have to do. You have 3 days. Get your business
Wow.
proposal in place, see if you can put together a business plan, meet with the board of directors, the whole shebang. And my business partner and I sat down and we actually took all of our thoughts and ideas that we had been thinking about and
Yeah.
put them to paper and actually built a pitch for what we wanted to do. And that was 15 years ago.
Wow.
So they said yes to us. We said yes to them. And so Quint was born in 2005. So a little
Amazing.
over 15 years ago, I guess,
Yes.
really 17
Yes.
technically. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing story. And I'm congratulations, by the way, that obviously you're doing something right to be able to survive that long, because the statistics are there. Most businesses close within the first 5 years. That's
Mhm.
about like 70 something percent.
Yep.
So to survive, and then thrive, 17 years, that's a big accomplishment. So kudos to you, Wendy.
Thanks. It's certainly not without bumps in the road for sure. We definitely have seen those, and it has not always been, rosy and sunshine and rainbows, but I'm so glad that I said yes to my former CEO and accepted the challenge, and because it has really been it was life-changing and one
Mhm.
that I'm really glad that I did. So,
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah.
And it's great to sometimes have those um, the right people, like your CEO, and not
Mhm.
everybody gets that,
Yeah.
to recognize that you had that talent, that fire, that energy, that you wanted to bring this something new, and he gave you that opportunity. And of course, kudos to you for seeing that opportunity and not being afraid to take it.
Oh, I was afraid, Marie. Don't get me wrong. I was very, very
But you
afraid.
did take it.
I think there's definitely a balance of ambition and drive with a little bit of fear mixed in, just to kind of, you got to get the mix right. So, it was totally worth it. Totally worth it.
Yeah, and I mean, all of us, I think, when we start, we're always afraid, and majority
Yeah.
that survive or go through those hardships, right? All of us, whether personal or business,
Right.
we keep going, and that's the fear, kind of like we have to fight that and just keep
Yeah.
going, because if not, then we're throwing in the towel. We're like, oh, we're giving up, and then the dreams are
Yeah.
sitting all the way far away, never happening.
Yeah.
I think that's that. You hit it right on the on the head. It's exactly that.
Yeah.
So other than, let's say, in this situation, obviously Quint was born, but then has there been any other times that we've had a major impact in your life that really has maybe uh, changed the way you see things, view things, or it could be anything, general, business or personal, that you would think that our audience could actually learn from that?
Um, gosh, probably a lot. Probably that could probably be an entire series of podcasts on its own. All the lessons that
Oh,
you
you're
learn
bringing
along the
ideas.
way, things that happened. Yeah, it does seem like a lot, but it's interesting because the moment that you asked that question, I immediately thought of someone who I admire a lot, Mel Robbins. She's a former CNN host. She is a New York Times bestselling author of, I think, at least 2 books. She has a podcast of her own. I've had the great fortune of working with her as a guest speaker at a couple of events that we've produced.
Uh-huh.
And just absolutely, I find a lot of inspiration in her story and her approach to, there's a book over my shoulder called The 5-Second Rule, which she wrote. And I think kind of getting to know her and getting to know her story and the motivation techniques that she used in her own life and then shared those with the world, it
Mm-hmm.
really had an impact on me and something that I have carried with me since I very first heard of Mel Robbins and learned of her story. And I think that learning from other people and hearing their stories and using them as inspiration is something that I really like, because I think that, when you mirror yourself, when you find somebody like a Mel Robbins or um, anybody else who kind of hits a note with you and you can mirror yourself against them, I think that that's empowering and powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And each of us, I think we all, and at different times, right? Like in our lives, will be
Mhm.
impacted by someone um, that would really change the way we do things, or open up our mind to a new set of things that we never thought about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally understand you. I mean, in my case, um, there have been a few people as well, but
Mhm.
I guess the biggest impact has happened through the 10x, Grant Cardone. That he really changed the way I see things. I
Sure.
never thought an accountant can be that effective. And the reason I connected with him is, and I found out he was an accountant, and I was like, whoa, if an accountant can be this good, I mean, in
Right.
sales, training, marketing, I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa. So for me, he was that impact, because I'm like, wow, well, if he did it, then I can do it,
Yeah.
So yes, I'm an accountant, I'm a CPA, and I have that specific training, but doesn't mean it stops me from doing all the other things as well and being
Right.
good and helping more people. So,
Right.
so yeah, I love that. We all
Yeah.
go through these specific timelines that someone is impacting us so powerfully.
Yeah.
So I love that. So let's talk a little bit about some of the customers, and I mentioned a few. These are big names.
Mhm.
Google Cloud, Pixar. I mean, these are big names.
Yeah.
Customers. Yeah. So tell us about overall customer experience, and what are the things that you're helping them with through Quint.
So yeah, you're right. We have some amazing logos. When you look at our customers, some you're going to obviously recognize straight out of the gate. Others maybe not so much. But we have had the pleasure of working with companies from nonprofits to trade organizations, startups, publicly traded companies. Um, I think as a group, we like to think of ourselves as being industry agnostic. So it's not like, oh, we're the HR event people or we're the tech people, tech events or whatever. Like, to us, it's like it doesn't matter what industry you're in.
Mhm.
Most of our clients, I think, if not all, I was actually thinking about this a little bit yesterday, have come to us through word of mouth referrals.
Mhm.
And I think that that's probably a somewhat true statement for a lot of agencies our size. When you're kind of that small-ish, medium-sized agency, I don't even know if
Mhm.
maybe we're still small technically, but um, we have goals. Um, a lot of business, I think, for smaller agencies does come from word of mouth referrals. But I think the
Yes.
thing that is true for us is that we kind of keep our clients for a really long time. I mean, we've had clients
Yes.
since, the first one in 2005, still with us,
Wow,
like
that's
those
amazing.
long-term relationships are
Yes.
incredibly important. And how do we do that without kind of the proof is in the pudding, without constantly being able to deliver what they need and being creative in our approach? Um, when we get asked the question, like, who do you want as a customer? Who are your ideal customers?
Yes.
To me, I think the really kind of short or broad answer is, if it's any company who wants to produce an event. I don't care if it's doing an industry trade show
Mhm.
or hosting their own 1,000-person conference for their customers and partners and everything in between, field marketing and product launches and everything. If it looks, smells, sounds like an event, it's in our wheelhouse. Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and especially now with a lot of the hybrid events and
yeah.
having the like the one I attended, I think it was in 2020, end of 2020 or 20,
Hmm.
still in pandemic.
Yeah,
Maybe this is some of the stuff you do, and I just want to
right.
share, and you can type it. So it was actually for QuickBooks Connect, and it was like
Hmm.
a virtual conference. It was like 3 days, and it was so cool because you had that almost the visual of you're at a conference. You had the
Yeah,
on the screen, you had the places to go, the booths to visit.
right.
I'm like, oh my god, like how long did it take for them to create this? And it was amazing. It was a great experience, between
Yeah,
going to the different sessions and breakouts and all that stuff. And then they would give you opportunities to kind of, let's say, market the fact that this in the social media,
right.
like, hey, I'm attending the conference, blah blah. It was so cool, but I was like literally in my office looking at a screen the
That,
whole time. But they made that experience like as if you were physically there.
yep.
It was so cool.
It's been that, when you asked the question earlier about was there anything that sort of made you look at things differently, and I think the pandemic just is also
Yeah,
one. I think probably rings true for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. I think, for us, it was a challenge because we had a lot of clients who had no idea what it meant
yeah,
to do virtual events. We had some who were. Fortunately for us, we were already in the virtual game. We were already doing some
awesome.
webinars and video production and things for our clients. And so it was a relatively easy pivot for us, but it wasn't necessarily an easy pivot for our clients. And so
Mhm.
it was kind of painful in the beginning trying to figure out how to do this and make it something like it. Early days, it was like, "Hey, let's just get on Zoom. Let's just do something. We got to be out there. We have to, turn those cameras on." And then, slowly but surely, you start to realize the conversation needs to kind of be a little bit different. We need to be a little bit more engaging. We need to think about things in the hybrid virtual event, in a more creative way. And I think that's the thing that's really been an interesting thing to observe from an
Yeah.
event industry person. Yeah. So,
Yeah, because I mean that takes a lot of plan. I can imagine because
mm,
when that when I was when I was experiencing that kind of
mhm.
virtual kind of conference, which is really
Mhm,
what you impact that quite a lot. And
mhm.
I was comparing myself to like, okay, when I used to I used to work for the chamber here in Miami, and then we used to have a lot of events, and I remember like physically planning all of these stuff, the event managers, the staff, and then the night
Right.
before the badges and all that. I mean, I've had to live that for like 8 years. So I get
Good times.
how hard it is that event planning, from a conference,
Yeah,
and it was a nonprofit, and to kind of replicate that in a digital setting. I mean, that must be
yeah,
like
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, I think, and it's been interesting to see how it's pivoting again, right? As we're coming
Hmm.
out of the pandemic, life is sort of, I won't say normal or returning to the way that it was. It's like it's definitely different, I think, in
Hmm.
post-pandemic life, but more and more our clients and their customers are kind of demanding that in-person thing come back, even if it's on a micro scale or a smaller event,
Yeah.
whatever it is. It's like, or big. I mean, we've had an 800 person, 1100 person event already, a couple of
Wow.
different times this year. So it's I won't say we're back, but we're back kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh goodness, yeah, and before I move on to the next thing, but I
Yeah.
wanted to quickly read out some of your information, Wendy, because for
Oh,
those
yeah.
who are listening and they won't be able to see the screen, and I'm showing
Mm.
the thing. So, by the way, guys, Wendy is offering a free 45-minute consultation, very special for my audience, my listeners. So make sure to let her know you're a Profit Lab listener, and email Wendy at quintconnect.com. That is QUINTCONNECT.com. So Wendy at quintconnect.com. You can also check out her website, of course, quint.com, and her phone number 917-445-9729. I'm going to repeat one more time, quintconnect.com, and the phone number 917-445-9729.
Yeah.
So I'm going to leave this up for a little bit for people can write down your email, and so yeah. So you said something about the 1,100 people. I mean, that's a lot. And then one of the things I'm also noticing, Wendy, and I know you can tell me for sure, that now that some people have experienced that, pandemic situation where we could have this digital, attendance to a conference. And now, do you feel like or have you seen that people are having the pressure of creating hybrid events so that those who don't want to travel in person, now you have to cater for both type of preferences instead of just, we just do in person, or versus, well, we're stuck doing it digital. Now you got it.
Yeah, we did less now and less thinking into 2023 and beyond. Although the caveat is that right now, and I think you and I were chatting a little bit about this before, is that it's all about the content game in a lot of ways, right? So if you're hosting your own event, you have, even if it's a single day, you've got multiple presentations, potentially multiple tracks. You've got a ton of content that you're delivering to an in-person audience, or potentially a hybrid audience if you've gone that route. And then you find yourself asking yourself the question, or you should, what can we do with all this content that's being spoke to at our event, and how can we give it a life post event? And I think that's another kind of conversation that we love to have with our clients is how then can we increase engagement with your audience post event, extend the life of that event message, even past that event date, even if it is in a live or even a hybrid model.
Right. No, that's great that you say that. It's like kind of repurposing all of that production that went into it. What can we do with all these videos and continue the conversation and connect? And you mentioned it's in your bio as well. It's like that, creating that community engagement, right? That's the biggest thing right now. It's not just having random likes. It's about really having a community that's following you because you provide great content.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's been so many studies, I think, that have said, look, we don't buy from people, or I'm misspeaking. It's like we want to buy from brands that we know and love and trust, right? That absolutely translates to consumer goods shopping, to even B2B in the B2B space, which is where I play most of the time. So most of my clients are in the B2B world, not exclusively, but predominantly. And that is a very true statement still. Like companies want to do business with other companies that they believe in, that they identify with, and that feel authentic and true. And that that's very important, I think.
Yeah, especially in a world of digital, robots taking over influencers. Like, hello. We're talking here about being authentic and really having a true community that follows you. Exactly. That may not be in the millions, but they're real.
They are real. I love that.
That's one of the things that, in the beginning, I was like constantly looking at others and like, I don't know, how did they get like 590,000 people like on LinkedIn? I just don't know how that happens. And, and then, or you see Instagram and you see, I don't know, 11 million, I don't know, like random numbers, like, and like, what the, so even if it's like time, even over time, it's been built up that way.
Yeah.
In one of my trainings with Grant, it was one of the things like the Mythbusters, right? Like those are not real people. There could be like just random followers that are not really going to purchase the product. They don't even believe in the product. Maybe they're just like random pictures. And sometimes you look at the picture and the actual what the service is, you're like, it doesn't really fit. Like So you can tell that there's certain images and videos are used to kind of get attention, but it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't really give the true value of a,
Yeah,
service or a product. So,
it's true.
so my key thing is like, just to make sure to stay true to who you are, your
Yep.
product, your service, and find, your real clients will follow you.
Yeah.
Um, so, all right. So, from all of your experiences in the past 17 years as a business owner and entrepreneur, what are some of the challenges that you have faced? You
Um,
mentioned up and down, but like maybe one or two challenges that were like, "Ugh," and then but you
yeah.
overcame it.
Yeah. I think that as an entrepreneur, I'm constantly thinking about how to grow the business. I think that's true for every entrepreneur. That's, it's
Yes,
a central preoccupation of most of my thoughts. Like, how can
of
we get
course.
bigger? How can we do better? How can we grow? But I think one thing that I maybe didn't think about earlier on in my career, is how do you fire a client? And I mean, why would you ever need to think about that as an
Yeah, I
entrepreneur?
mean,
Aren't we supposed to say yes to everyone?
everybody.
Like, our clients are great. We're never going to want to not do work with them. That's not true. Um, I think firing a client was one of the biggest lessons that I learned. It was as a business owner, and as an agency where like
Mhm.
you're, it was such a difficult thing to even think about saying no to someone after. I mean, this particular situation was probably not foreign to other agencies either. I'm
Mm.
sure other people have experienced, similar situations where you start working, you're 3 months in, maybe 4 months in, you haven't been paid, you're struggling to be aligned with the client,
Yes.
it's just really incredibly difficult. No conversation is easy. It's just struggle after struggle after struggle. And so finally, after a period of a few months, it's like, okay, look, Mr. Client, we kind of have two paths here. We either need to have a big meeting and get realigned and get paid and have like a
Yeah.
real, like, true conversation about what's happening and how do we really go forward together, or we need to part ways.
Yeah.
And it was really kind of that simple. And it was weird to think of it being that simple because of all of the turmoil and the worry and the stress of, oh my gosh, what's going to happen if we
Right.
don't have this client? And it wasn't a good situation. And so ultimately we parted ways. And I think as an entrepreneur, the big lesson for me was that was okay. It was okay because I could do it. We could
Yeah.
fire the client. It was okay because we didn't actually lose any more work. We weren't paid anyway.
Right.
We were
Right.
already at a
Right.
loss. Um, and we didn't go under. We're still here.
Right.
And so it was kind of okay. It was like really okay. And that realization it's so hard to think about running a business sometimes and what that means and getting new clients and servicing those clients and building strategies that they're going to really love and want to work with you. And then to think about the other side of the coin where you actually need to part ways with somebody in a really uncomfortable, when the situation is uncomfortable, it's like, just tell yourself it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're going to come through this. And while that door is going to close, another 1, 2, 3, or 10 or 100 are going to open, and it's going to be fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I totally hear you. I went through the same thing, and I had two different instances with clients. One was it wasn't about the payment; it was the aggressive and condescending behavior
Sure.
that
Yeah.
I was like, and I was just starting out. I didn't even have my business. I was just a consultant at the time,
Hmm.
and my husband was the one who was like, "Don't you have it in your agreement that you can fire the client?"
Yeah.
Because I mean, and I don't know if it's a woman thing because or we're shy or we're in the beginning stage. I'm not
Hmm.
sure what it was for me, but I was definitely not wanting to lose any client I have, especially if I'm dependent on that, right? So
Totally.
yeah. And I think from a man's perspective, I think sometimes it's great to have a lot of guys around me because their perspective is a little different.
Yeah.
And he just said it. He said, "You have it in your contract, don't you?" I said, "Yes, it's in there." He's like, "Then fire him." I'm
Yeah.
like, "But how do I write that? How should I put it in the email?" Like I was literally shaking probably because especially that
Yeah.
like you and me, we're more of that we want to have that communication. We want to have
Right.
that. We're a little bit more touchy feely from that sense. We are very emotionally attached to. We get attached to the people.
True.
Our emotional intelligence is kind of very high, so we cannot
Yeah.
help it to say or write up something that is going to be a blockage of it or cutting off a relationship is like very
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
So I was like, I was very, it was difficult for me to write up that email. I had to have my husband
Oh my
read it a
gosh.
couple of times. He's like, send it, like just send it. And
Right.
sure enough,
Yeah.
I did the right thing. I did the right thing. And the second,
Good.
it was actually a payment thing, and we started working against my contract, saying it has to be, a prepayment of a specific amount before we
Right.
start to work.
Right.
And because of someone that was in my own from my own native country, let's say, um, and I just kind of went ahead and just started the work, and it kind of backfired. So
Yeah.
lesson learned.
Lesson
Lesson
learned. Exactly. And that's what it's all about, I think, too. And learning how, whether you're a solo entrepreneur running your own business and it's your company doing your thing, whether it's like my situation where I have a business partner who
Yes,
we collaborate, we have a leadership team, or if
yes,
you're a bigger company and you've got a board of directors, and no matter what the situation is, I think that, you know, defining the non-negotiables, if you will,
right,
the things that are absolute, here's the line, and we're not
yes,
going to cross it. And if
yes,
someone, whether it's internal or external, crosses it, then you having that conversation and the plan, and that's what we did after that we fired this one
yeah,
client. Like, we're like, okay, this is a situation that had never happened to us before. And so now we know, we kind of have a process a little bit better. We adjusted, reworked some
right,
things in our contracts. We start asking for more money up front. So there's little things
absolutely,
that we definitely learned
yes,
from a business process perspective.
right,
Um, I think for me, when I was like telling you this story, I'm coming at it from like the emotional perspective
right,
of, what I went through, Marie, to kind of get rid of this client. But in how important it is for those who might be starting out their businesses, or maybe you're running a company that's 30 years old. It's
yeah,
still I think it's still a good lesson to know that if that situation comes up, to be empowered to say no for yourself.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I think many of us go through that, and this is really the purpose of having different entrepreneurs and come and speak about
Mhm.
their experiences, because if someone's listening or watching, they're going to see that almost many of us have repeated almost identical
Yeah.
experiences. So
Yeah.
we're telling you ahead of time this is going to come. So you might as well deal with it or take care of it or prep yourself for it ahead of
Exactly.
time. Learn from our
Exactly.
mistakes, that and instead of just waiting for it. So
Yep.
um, okay, and then so before we kind of like wrap up, I would love it if you can share with our audience and our listeners, let's say three key takeaways, and they could be anything. Key
Mm.
three takeaways, three of them, that you would like to share with other entrepreneurs to empower them and prep them for what they're going to do from your own experiences.
Oh, man. Again, it's hard to limit it to just 3 sometimes, right?
Yeah,
Um,
the
the
first
list
three
is
that come to
really
mind.
long. It can be really long. Um, I think that one would be to trust yourself and trust the intentions of people that you work with, like your coworkers, your vendors, your clients,
Yes,
your customers. Trust that their intentions are coming from a place of good, but trust yourself too.
yes,
um, I believe in adopting a kind of radical transparency policy. That's something that was very important to us in the very, very early days. Like, we share receipts with clients. We show, the transparency and communication. If something is not going the way that we need to, communicate. I don't think there's ever a situation where you can over communicate and be, too transparent, right? I think that's important. I think that helps with those relationships. And
Yes.
then I think probably third, gosh, I think it's okay to ask why. I think that's an important place to come from. I think it's okay to ask why we're doing this, whether you're asking it to a client or a coworker. I think it's okay to disagree, but I
Yes.
think that you should do it from a place of compassion and kindness and with an open heart, and be prepared to hear, really truly hear. If you are in a situation of disagreement, hear what the other person is saying, but it's okay. You're not always going to agree with everyone that you do business with. And that's fine.
Yeah.
And it's okay to ask questions of each other, but do it in a kind and compassionate way and with an open heart.
I love that. Those are very, very great tips for us to use. Thank you, Wendy. And thank you so much for each sharing your story with us. Is there any
Absolutely.
other last minute thoughts that you want to share before we wrap up?
Oh gosh.
Open door for you.
Open door.
Open floor.
I'll just do a quick shout out to the one and only Miss Taylor Swift, because I feel like she and I are truly aligned on this day, because this is episode 13 of the Profit Lab podcast, and 13 is her lucky number. And as a true Swiftie, I can't imagine that this could have gone any better, that I ended up on episode 13 of the Profit Lab. So
Oh, it's so
shout
cool.
out to shout out to Taylor Swift.
Woohoo! Awesome. Awesome. Sounds good. Great, Wendy. Thank you so much. And congratulations on delivering excellence to your clients for the past
Thank you.
17 years, and then and for the future as well. And to all our viewers and our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. Please remember to subscribe, follow, like, share on any, the content on any other platforms that you're listening, watching us on. Let's power each other through our experiences. And until the next episode, have a wonderful and blessed rest of your week. Stick around, Wendy.
Will do.